We are so pleased to have with us today John Thurman. Many of you have heard him on the radio or seen him on television. John is a licensed mental health professional, an ordained minister. You mix the two of those together, that's good. An author, a speaker, and a disruptive workplace specialist. And you live right here. Welcome back.
Thank you. Great to be back again with you, Pastor.
We're excited to be able to talk to John today. And, you know, I think with all that's going on in our world, John, there's so many big things.
Oh, gosh.
So many big things since we even talked a few months ago. But what are you seeing happening, especially with the sickness situation, the COVID-19, the disruptions that started, for most of us, probably mid-March, I guess.
Yes.
That's when all of a sudden the waves started breaking onto our shores. What's going on?
The last time I was on, it was just beginning, and we were kind of worried about where it was going to go. And wow, who knew? I mean, the Lord did.
I didn't.
Man, yeah, it's crazy. My most recent former job, I worked as an employee assistance consultant for Federal Occupational Health. And they sent all of us home the 11th of March to say work from home. And I was fine to do that. And it was interesting, the counseling business there went from kind of 4 or 5 a week to like 35 a week.
Really?
Because of COVID.
And I know you can't give us a lot of specifics, but
I can give you some specifics.
What's the things people are dealing with?
Part of what's happening is husbands and wives are used to going to work. And now he or she or they are home all day.
Or they, yeah.
Yeah, and then throw the kids in on top of that. And so you have that stuff. For me at that time, I was pretty secure because I was I was a contractor.
Okay.
And yet on May 20th, I got a phone call saying, we're shutting 8 offices down and yours is one of those.
Wow.
So that was, that
gets personal then.
It was personal then. And, I'm an optimistic person. And people said, what did you do? I said, I felt a little sad, but I said, you know what? Getting all tore up about it isn't going to solve anything. So next week, I opened up my private practice.
Well,
so we're just going to,
go back to what you did before.
I'm going to be like a cat and just flip and land on my feet again.
Yeah.
And, I'm excited about what the Lord's going to be doing there. One of the things that COVID has done, and I know you as a real guy who understands technology a whole lot more than me, I've really seen the technology be able to morph into something that's really something more than just how many likes did you get on your Facebook page. Mm-hmm. I know from a therapist standpoint, we're doing a lot of teletherapy, telemedicine.
Sure.
And one of the things that's blown me away by this is when people come to your office or when they come to the therapist office and sit in the therapist chair and in that environment, they're kind of uptight. Telephone, FaceTime, and Duo, and Zoom, people are so much more relaxed.
Is that right?
And my experience has been we're actually able to get into some substantial conversations pretty quick because they're in their space.
Okay. My house.
Yeah.
My chair.
Right. Or my bed. I had one guy said, I'm still in bed. Do you mind? I said, as long as you got clothes on, I'm good. She said, I have clothes on and I have my house coat on. But that's been one of the amazing things in consulting and in counseling people is the media seems to help make that go easier because there's less, I'm going to the head shrinker's office, or I have to go see the pastor,
right,
or the principal, however those all seem to kind of fall in. And so what we've really seen is a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety.
Has it been financial stress, or has it been relational stress, or has it been a little bit of both?
It depends. If you've got job security, a lot of state employees aren't going to miss anything. But for a lot of people that work for small industry and small business, big hit. And so we do see a lot of financial. We do see a lot of stress and anxiety over the future.
Yes.
Like we were talking a few minutes ago about the school.
Right. That's coming up.
Public and private, about small businesses.
Nobody knows what's going to happen.
And about how sometimes we New Mexicans are kind of slack about wearing our mask and doing social distancing and washing our hands. And so we have these delays in reopening. So there's a lot of stress and anxiety and angst out there. Mm-hmm. The unique thing about it is everybody's impacted, so nobody's really in this by themselves.
I was going to say, nobody got a free pass on this.
Nobody did.
I don't care who you are. You're dealing with folks in workplace environments. I'm a pastor. We both are seeing situations.
Yeah.
But let's talk about the churches for a minute.
Yeah.
So COVID came along, and for us, I can't remember the exact date. I think it was the third Sunday of March was our last Sunday we were open, and I think we were closed for 7 or 8 Sundays. At our church, we were able to reopen as soon as they gave us the green light. So we've been open, I think, now 8 weeks.
Good.
But what a run of 16 weeks of a little bit of everything. How do you see this? And I only see it, as in a more limited scope. What do you see at large with COVID?
For the church in large, I think we've done a good job. I think we've tried to encourage our people. I know people on our ministry team have reached out to me a couple times. How you doing? Because I am an older dude. My wife and I are like the old guard and gardenias now. And so they've checked with us a couple of times. And I've really been impressed, particularly to see how churches have really come together, both as individual entities and as the larger body of Christ, to do what they do to help our community through food banks,
yes,
telephonic outreaches, supporting other agencies doing things. And so, really, when Jesus said, he talked about, well, Lord, when were we hungry? When were we stressed? When were we in jail? When you did this, you did it to me. And so I've seen a lot of churches really up their game in that.
I have too. And, every church is unique.
They are.
And every church has special giftings and strengths. But one of the things that I have seen is that the body of Christ, and I'm going to speak specifically to our community. I can't speak to every community in the state of New Mexico or our region. But I have seen a lot of pastors, a lot of churches reach out. How are you doing? What's working for you? The competitiveness seems to have diminished significantly. And the real understanding that we're all in this together. And then even the concept of how are you personally doing? Because this is kind of hard for everybody to deal with. People coming back to church, are you hearing people nervous about coming back to church?
Yes and no. Now, in our church, we've elected not to go back, quickly, just because we're both older folks and I have asthma. So I want to lower that threat for me personally.
Sure.
But, I think people are coming back. I think I've missed it. I was talking to my grandson yesterday. I said, I've missed worship. I mean, television's nice. Internet's great. But there's something about singing together, praying together, celebrating the Lord's Supper together. And by the way, and hearing the Word of God.
Right.
Don't want to leave that one out. It's odd. I was asked to preach at our church. I did a message on addictions. And it was the first Sunday that we couldn't have church.
Oh, man.
And he said, well, how are you going to do it? I said, well, I'll preach like it's a webinar. I can't see the people, but I'll just go for it. So there were 4 of us in the room to do the filming. But I think what's happening is we're seeing the church stepping it up, being the church. And I mean that in a broad base, where it's a Catholic, Protestant, charismatic. I'm seeing the body really try to be the hands and feet of Jesus to the community, but also in nurturing each other.
And certainly, the COVID situation is only one of a multitude of things that we're seeing impacting our society right now.
Yes.
We have a lot of social unrest. We have a lot of tension. There's protests. We're in a political season. There's a lot going on.
A lot of craziness.
And a lot of people are feeling some stress because of that. And, I'd like for you to comment on that, but I want to take a minute for us to have enough time for you to talk about the fact that we're going to look a little bit more about how do you think people are dealing with depression and being anxious.
Sure.
So we're going to stay with us. We're going to get back to our guest today, John Thurman, in just a minute. Summer has been a blessed season of being able to get some new ministries engaged and on the air. We're so thankful for some of the new friends coming our way. The folks at Church Alive have been doing a program dealing with how families matter, and I love that. And thankful for the folks at Wings International who have been doing some new programming. But understand that as we work with local ministries like those, or national ministries, they are able to come. Part of the way that they're supported is through viewer support just like yours. And so I would encourage you to do your best to support us here at Alpha Omega Broadcasting, KAZQ and KTVS, because we depend on your faithful giving. And summer months can be more challenging because folks can get distracted. So we've got to stay focused on the blessings of God and the faithfulness of the Lord.
That's exactly right. I'm so thankful for the Lord and for his faithfulness during this season, because we didn't know what was going on. We didn't know what was going to happen, but the Lord has been so faithful and so good. And Alpha Omega Broadcasting is one of the few networks, well, not few, but there are so many others that share other news, and we want to share the good news of Jesus Christ and his greatness in our life and how good he is. And part of the reason we're here is because we're viewer supported, just like Pastor said, and you are a big part of that. Be sure to visit us online at KAZQ-32.org. You can give safely there. You can send in your check or money order to 4501 Montgomery Boulevard Northeast, Albuquerque, New Mexico, 87109, or simply call into the station and we can take care of it for you at 505-884-8355, extension 101.
You know, I like what you said. You know, we're one of many networks, but here's the key. We're one of a few that have a good Christian worldview. You know, a Christian worldview is rare today, looking at things through the perspective and the eyes of Scripture. So your support is so important. Thank you for all you do. Our guest today, John Thurman. John has been talking to us about COVID-19, mental health impacts. How are we feeling? All of that stuff. And I want to get right back into it, John.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about, what advice would you give to somebody who is feeling anxious? Because we've talked about a lot of things that cause people to feel anxious, but what would you tell somebody who's feeling anxious? Maybe they're feeling depressed, their situation and what they wanted it to be. How do you go from there?
Sure. Well, whose situation right now is what they want it to be?
I don't know anybody.
I don't know anybody. If you know that person, call us. They may be really doing great, or they could be delusional.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah, it could be either way.
Could go either way. Well, I think the biggest impact that all this is having on us is isolation.
I would see that.
Being at home, not being able to hang out with your friends, not being able to hang out with your friends at church, your brothers and sisters. Wearing your mask, maintaining social distancing and things like that. And if you already have some issues with depression or anxiety, this is like putting nitrous oxide on the engine and really revving the engine up. And so I would encourage you, first of all, if you're feeling depressed or anxious or feeling overwhelmed, acknowledge it. And as a believer, go, Lord, right now I'm really dialed up. I mean, I know I'm supposed to cast down vain imaginations. I know greater is he who's in me than he who's in the world. I know I'm an overcomer, but right now I'm not feeling it. And so what happens to a lot of Christians is they're feeling a lot of shame because what has worked for them isn't working now.
Do you think that this is impacting people who are younger more, older more, have family at home, or everybody?
That is a great question. That's a pretty good one. I think it's impacting everybody. I think the older folks, since I am one of them, are a little bit more dialed up because they realize this could kill them.
Sure. I mean, that's a real fear.
I think a lot of the younger folks are just frustrated because they feel bound at home. They need to get out. Of course, so many of them can just lose themselves in social media. And I think each level is impacted differently. I think for those of us that are in the 60-plus group, we're realizing we will not live forever in this mortal body.
It really drives that home. Yeah, as a pastor, I have seen several of the people that, I wouldn't say that necessarily they're all old, but they're older.
Right.
Right? And they really are concerned. They're very thoughtful. Mm-hmm. I've seen people who were very engaged become less engaged. Not maybe they still come to church.
Sure.
But they don't come to church as much. They don't stay engaged. They don't linger.
Right. They don't hang around.
No. They get in and out. Some people are afraid to come, or if they've come, they've only come once.
They're kind of tipping their toe in.
No, they are. And that's one of the things I've seen. One of the things I've seen we didn't mention, people in the middle, the people who've got the kids at home.
Yes.
Man, now that's a whole other country too, because the stress of being a parent, a teacher, maybe working on the side, that's got its own stresses, doesn't it?
Oh, and then the fact that your spouse is there with you in it.
Sometimes.
I mean, sometimes, yeah.
Yeah,
And so you get all those different stressors. I think for a lot of people, this is helping them think about eternity in a very real way.
I agree.
I think for a lot of people, I think as a culture, the culture's looking for hope, and I think we as a church can be a beacon of hope there.
And I think it's also, and you can correct me if you think differently, but I think it's causing us to wonder about some of the things that we had prioritized.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody was waiting for the next movie to come out. Well, there aren't any movies coming out.
Right.
Everybody celebrated the entertainers. Well, those guys are all parked on the sidelines.
Right.
Everybody was celebrating the guys who were, playing, and you pick the sport: baseball,
right.
basketball,
soccer,
football,
whatever. Yeah.
Well, those guys and ladies aren't here anymore.
No.
They're all, sitting at home, and it makes you just say, well,
yeah.
What is going to be valuable to me? So you have written about 4 emotional phases of managing a crisis.
Yes.
So we should probably talk about those.
Yeah. And on my website, you can matter of fact, you can just Google John Thurman articles COVID-19. I've got 4 or 5 articles out there.
Good.
But when we look at dealing with any type of stress or crisis, there's 4 phases. The first is like the historical phase. This is back January, February, March. It's coming. It's coming. We don't know what it means, but it's coming. COVID-19's coming. And that's when you heard all the corona jokes. The old rock and roll's my corona and stuff like that. That's kind of the historic phase. The next phase is the honeymoon phase. We're Americans. We'll get through this. We can do this. We're going to knock this thing out in 3 weeks. And people come together, we're compliant to the suggestions. We're in this together forever type stuff.
Right. And you can see it on billboards.
Yeah. And then you'll see about week 9 to week 12, you begin to see a shift. And that's the disillusionment phase.
The angry stage.
The angry stage. That's where the guy said, well, I don't have to wear a mask. And I'm like, you don't have to, but you wear it for me because I'm wearing it for you. But it's kind of like, they can't tell me what to do. And that's when a lot of churches open early. I know there's a church in Florida that opened early and had one in Louisiana, and they had hundreds of people get sick and scores of people die. And I'm like, some of this stuff you can't play with. But that's kind of the disillusionment phase. The disillusionment phase, you'll still see we're kind of in this together. But part of that is like, what? We're in this together. I got to take care of myself and my family. And so you'll see people begin to pull away from their social groups. And they're kind of hunkering down because they're realizing this is not going to be 1 month. And so you see less about, we're going to do this, to now it's more like, yeah, we're going to do this, but I got to watch out for my family. And so there's that disillusionment phase. It's kind of like circling the wagons. Mm-hmm. And then there's the final phase, which is a good phase, is kind of the emerging hope or reconstruction phase.
Are we there yet?
We are
close.
incrementally getting there.
That's pretty close to week 12 now.
It's incrementally we're getting there with a little bit of opening. But, when you look at what happened in Texas and Arizona and Florida. With everybody, ding dong, the witch is dead. Let's go out and party.
And the other side of that is even some of the places up in the Northeast.
Yes.
North New York, they've got their own set of problems, and California is starting to. So even the guys that didn't completely burst forth are having their own set of problems again.
Yeah.
I mean, California went back onto certain levels of restrictions. I think it was this weekend.
Yes. And so the kind of reintegrating phase is like, okay, we aren't quite sure what the new normal is, but we're going to take some baby steps towards it. And agree or disagree with the current administration, I think as we move forward, we need to be intentional and paced. In other words, we need to look at it as we reopen our churches, as we reopen our contact. We need to be very intentional about it. We need to be cautious, but not fearful.
Mm-hmm. And that's a hard place to be honest.
It is, isn't it?
Because you want to, as a leader or as just a person, you want to be hopeful. You want to be encouraging. We want to say this thing's not going to kill me. But in the back of your mind, I'm starting to find more and more people who know somebody who caught it or know somebody who caught it and died.
You
Now, often there was an extenuation.
Yeah.
I understand that.
They
Maybe they were
typically
80 or
met-
90 years old and they were in a nursing home
Yep.
or whatever.
or
but,
some other.
Right.
I had a friend of mine, a Navajo friend of mine, brother, who lost 11 family members
Yes.
in a month and a half.
Yeah, we had a family in our church who lost, I think, 2 or 3, but
Yeah.
not nearly 11.
And you know, and for the church, for us to show compassion and love and concern and be
right.
that healing balm,
Yes.
but to also realize that the new normal, we don't know what it's going to look like yet.
Well, okay, so let's talk about that as we finish our time. If we don't know what it's going to look like, how do you plan for it?
Great question. Number one, we know who's on the throne. And I'm not trying to be cute here. We know how the book ends. I think if you look at the Black Plague, the church was the only group that didn't bail. They stayed. A lot of Christians died helping people who were ill. And after that, the church had a huge resurgence after the Black Plague because the church was invested in health and healing. I think what we're going to see church-wise is it'll be a new normal, it'll be a different normal, but I think we're going to be more intentional about sharing, piercing the darkness with the good news about the kingdom of heaven.
And I also think that, and I'm beginning to see this, I believe that there is more of an awareness that, life is only so long.
Right.
Okay? And I don't care if you're 20, 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, doesn't matter. There's a realization that, if I may not die of the coronavirus,
Right.
someday I'm going to die. I mean, we don't want to even think about that,
No.
but now we've been confronted with that reality regularly for 3 or 4 months, that people are getting sick, that people are dying. Whether you do or don't, there will be a day.
Right.
And so it can't help but plant a seed in your mind that what am I going to do after I die?
Well,
Is there a day after I die, an afterlife, which of course I believe.
And you and I have both officiated enough funerals.
Certainly.
And you know what I tell people? You have a start date and an end date. What are you going to do with the dash?
I've used that poem a lot of times.
It's good stuff, isn't it?
It is. How are you going to use those days in between?
And I think as we move forward with this new normal, that's going to be the biggest thing, living a life of purpose and intentionality with a kingdom mindset.
That's good stuff, John. Well, you mentioned that you're going to be back available for people in the
Yes.
more in the private sector. So if somebody wanted to go to your website or they wanted to get in contact with you, give us some information. How
Sure.
would they make a connection?
The easiest thing you can do right now is go to my website, johnthurman.net, www.johnthurman.net, and you'll see a little teaser there. Get my free reboot PDF. It's how to reboot after COVID-19. That'll put you on my mailing list, and that way I can share with you the direct contact information and things like that. I'm really excited about this. We will be appropriate for where we are. We can do business over telephone, face-to-face, however they want to do. So I'm really excited, and thanks for mentioning it.
Absolutely. Well, our guest today, John Thurman, has been sharing with us some great information about how to deal with the emotional side of the COVID-19 pandemic that we're all facing. John, we appreciate your
Thank
insights,
you.
appreciate your wisdom today.
Thank you. Appreciate it.